Hi, welcome back. We'll get started now with some simple cable crosses. And first thing we're going to look at is cabling back and cabling forward. And that won't mean anything to you yet, but it will in a minute. Okay, so I'm just going to knit across to my first cable. Cables are usually done in kind of pairs. So for example, I've got 6 stitches that I'm cabling and they're divided in 2, so I've got 2 sets of 3 and they're going to twist around each other, and to do that you need your cable needle, and what you do is you slip the first 3 stitches onto your cable needle, and we're going to put that to the back of the work. Okay, if you've not done this before, it is going to feel like you're wrestling an octopus a bit, but just find your own way of what feels comfortable. You need to make sure you keep that cable needle secure though, because if you let it drop, chances are it's going to fall out and your stitches are then off the needle and you'll lose them. Okay, so then we're going to knit across the other 3 stitches that are on your main needle. Okay, and then we go back to our cable needle, just have a little jig to get it in the right position, and it's important not to twist that round as well, so that your stitches have kept straight, and knit off the cable needle, and then you've done your first twist. Then I'm going to purl a few stitches. Now usually you have got reverse stocking stitch between your cables, or sometimes a moss stitch, and that's to provide some contrast so your cables show up. Okay, so I'm going to get to our next set of 6 stitches, and we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to cable 6 back, but actually it's just 3, yeah? 3 going to the back, and then you're going to knit the other 3, the remaining 3, off your main needles. There we are. Okay, and then without twisting that around in any way, you're going to knit the 3 off your cable needle. Okay, I'll just pop that there for a moment. When you go back to purling, it's often good to just give that a little bit of a tug to avoid that stitch getting a bit baggy. So I'm purling across now to my next set of 3, and we've just been cabling back, and what that does is that twists our cable around to the right, so the stitches that were on the left seem to come forward and then over to the right. We're actually going to do it the opposite way round now, so our twist is going the other way. Be twisting over to the left, and to do that, instead of putting our stitches at the back, we need to bring them forward. So we put our 3 stitches onto our cable needle and bring that to the front, and again it might feel a bit strange the first few times you do that. We're going to knit the 3 off our main needle, and then come back to our 3 that are on the cable needle, and we're going to knit those across as well. Okay, so we've just done a cable 6 forward. So I'll purl across to my last one, get a bit more yarn there, and we'll show you that once more. Okay, so I'm going to take 3 across onto the cable needle, and I'm going to hold that at the front, and then I'm going to knit 3 across from the main needle. I'll go back to my cable needle, and take a bit of time to get your needles right. It's not a race, and we'll get those 3 off the cable needle. And I'll just finish that row, and we'll have a look at what we've got. Okay, so I've got my 4 cables, 2 are twisting over to the right, 2 are twisting over to the left, and that's it. It's not any more complicated than that. And the good news is you only do the actual cabling every so many rows. All the other rows are basically, if you see a purl stitch in front of you, you purl it. If you see a knit stitch, you knit it. It's a bit like doing rib, really. And but you can vary things quite a lot. So on this sample I had 6 stitches that I was cabling, and I was doing that every 6 rows. Here on this swatch I've basically got 4 stitches, so I've got 2 sets of 2, and I'm twisting them all over the same way, but you can see it looks quite different each cable, just simply because I've got different number of what we call rest rows. The rest rows are where you're not actually cabling, so basically there's 4 rest rows with this one. I've or 3 rest rows and 1 row of cabling. I'm cabling here every 6 rows, here every 8 rows, 10 rows, 12, and so on, and you can see it actually looks quite different, so things can vary quite a lot there. But cabling doesn't get an awful lot more complicated than that. There are a few other sort of tricks, but it's pretty much that. You're changing the order of the stitches that you're knitting, and even with just the basic stitch that we've just been looking at, you can get some quite more complex patterns, basically, depending how you place these together. On this swatch, we've got a cable and a space, but if you actually put cables directly next to each other, there's quite a lot of different patterns you can make by doing so. So on this swatch I've got basically, there's 2 sets of cable 4 and two sets here. And on this cable 4, I've got them twisting over to the right, so I'm cabling back. And on this side down here, we're cabling the other way, so we're cabling front. And you get this kind of like fishtail sort of looks. I've gone the opposite way here, so that's looks the same, but the other way up. If these were just single, you don't always have to just keep twisting the same way. You can twist first to the right, and then next time you come to your twist row, twist the other way. And then what you get is it's almost like this cable sits on the surface, and you get this kind of snaky kind of pattern there. And if you've put that side by side another one and sort of mirror that, you get these lovely sort of donut effects. Here I've kind of not cabled on this set of 4, but kept going on the other one, and then swapped round, and you can get these quite elaborate kind of patterns just playing around with where you place your crosses. So I suggest you have a go at this. Just have a play, pair up some sets of cables and see what different sort of patterns you can make. So that's straight cables. We're looking at static cables, really. They start in like a rope and they're working vertically. And they're on even stitches, but you can work them on odd number stitches as well. And so there's a slight variation. I'll show you how to do those. Let's put those to one side. So you can work them on 3s, 5s, 7s, an odd number of stitches basically. And how that works is you would have your pair of cables. So say if I had 5 stitches, I've kind of got 2 sets of 2 and a central stitch. And when you're crossing them, what we're trying to do is keep that central stitch in the same place. And I'll show you how to do that. Just get across to my first cable. Okay, so my first one, I've got 3 stitches. So I'm going to pick up, so I've got my central stitch and then one either side. I pick up my first one and then also pick up your central stitch. And I'm going to cable these backwards. Okay, so stick that to the back of the work. And I'm going to knit the other stitch, the remaining stitch, off of my usual needle. This is where it gets a bit different. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slip that stitch back, and that's the central stitch, put it back onto my left hand needle, and I'm going to knit that next. So that's still in the same position. It was stitch number 2 and it is now still stitch number 2. And then I'm going to take the remaining one off. Okay, so I've done my 3 twist. I'll go across to the next cable, and that's 5 stitches. So the same principles apply. I've got 5, so I've got a central one and 2 sets of 2 this time. So I take my first set of 2 plus the central stitch, and I'm going to pop that to the back, and I'm going to knit the 2 remaining stitches off my left hand needle. Okay, next I'm going to sort out my central stitch. I'm going to slip that one back over to my left hand needle and knit it. So that is still number 3 in my set of 5. And then I'm going to get those 2 off the cable needle. Okay. So I'll pop across a few more stitches, and we'll do that the other way. We'll make it twist the other way. So I've got my set of 3 like I had before. This time though we're going to twist them over to the left, so that means bringing the work forwards. So take my 1 stitch and my central stitch, hold that in the front of my work, just get my yarn the right way, take that one, then I'm going to slide this one over onto the needle. That's my central stitch. I'm going to knit that, and then I'm going to knit off my cable. Okay. Just purl across now to the last one, and this is the 5 stitch one again, this time going over to the left. So I get my 2 stitches and the central stitch. Okay, split the yarn there, there we are. I'm going to hold that to the front. I'm going to knit the 2 remaining ones from my left hand needle. Then I'm going to slip that middle stitch back over. I'm going to knit that one. And actually just sometimes find it easier to just slip those 2 back to the left needle. Feels like you're in more of a rhythm there. And it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. Just knit them straight off the cable again, or slip them back on your left hand needle before you do. It's exactly the same thing. Oops, dropped a stitch there. Okay, so that's that. So we've looked at our odd number stitch cables, and if you actually put the 2 together, you can see that the odd numbered stitch cables, because they've got that little bit more room, they've got that extra stitch, they actually kind of pop out a little bit more. They look a bit kind of more rounded than these ones. And it's also quite good because you've got a central stitch. There's somewhere dead centre you can perhaps put a bead or something if you wanted to later. Okay, so we've looked at the simple crosses, and they don't get any more complicated than that. All cable patterns, even though they might seem quite complicated, all involve these sorts of crosses. So far we've just been knitting straight sort of ropes that kind of start at one point and they just go straight up. What we're going to look at next is when we can make our cables kind of travel and meander across the fabric, so that's quite fun. So I'll see you then.